So let's investigate this brief spark of consciousness. Let's dig into what we in the philosophical world know as existentialism. Existentialism is a continental philosophy originating from mainland Europe. However, it is mostly referred to as a modern philosophical movement. The core of existentialism is that existence is based on the individual. It's your existence, my existence, his existence, hers, and so on. Existentialism is the investigation of the meaning of being, where the primary problem of existence is existence itself. Through existentialism, humans are viewed as beings with consciousness and will, beings that lives in a world with objects, and with our consciousness and will, we are free to make whatever choices and actions we find desirable in our world filled with objects. Now we've actually got no choice but to choose, because, as Sartre put it, we're condemned to be free, and with this freedom we are bound to make choices. The reason for all of this is that we humans are conscious of our own mortality, and therefore have a limited timeline for which we individuals can make our decisions about our lives. Now, the meaning of this limited time of existence, or as put before, this brief spark of consciousness, is nowhere to be found in existentialism. Although we can of course give it meaning ourselves. I mean, again, do we have a choice? Because we find ourselves existing in this world with a consciousness and will basically forced upon us. At some point throughout our lifetime we must wonder, what the hell am I doing here? This is referred to as the absurd in existentialism. The notion of the absurd is that it contains the idea that there is no meaning in the world beyond what meaning we give it ourselves. Another common term within existentialism is essence, and we humans inhabit essence, where essence is what makes you, you, and essence is what makes a human. And this is not due to nature or uncontrollable circumstances. Rather, human essence is really just what we choose to make it. This means that the only nature we as humans have is the nature we make for ourselves. Here's a picture painted by Franz Stuck in 1920. It depicts the symbol of the absurdity of existence, and it does not look pleasant or fun at all. Is this really how it feels to exist? Well, here's a video of a kitten to lighten the mood. What? You don't like kittens? Well, too bad. Go find your own goddamn pictures or videos of whatever you find joyful. Existentialism in its currently recognizable form was mostly inspired by the 19th century Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, and the 20th century French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Although Søren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche never used the term existentialism, they are still considered to be some of the front figures of existentialism, namely because of their philosophical work that focused on subjective human experience rather than the objective truths of mathematics and science, which they believe were too detached or observational to truly get at the human experience. They were interested in people's quiet struggle with the apparent meaninglessness of life and the use of diversion to escape from boredom. Another common subject within existentialism is angst, existential angst, sometimes called existential dread, anxiety, or anguish. This term is common to many existentialist thinkers, and it is generally held to be a negative feeling arising from the experience of human freedom and responsibility. Now, Kierkegaard saw rationality as a mechanism humans use to counter their existential anxiety, their fear of being in the world. Whereas Sartre saw rationality as an attempt by the self to impose structure on a fundamentally irrational and random world of phenomena. This hinders us from finding meaning in freedom and confines us within everyday experience. Now, it's not that you can't be religious whilst thinking within an existentialist framework. It's just that the most significant points of the existentialist movement contradicts most of all the religions created by humans. While the God of the Gaps tries to provide comforting answers to what we humans find most difficult, such as why we are here and what the purpose of this life is, existentialism does the exact opposite. It doesn't provide any comforting answers, it merely clarifies and acknowledges all the things we don't know about our existence, and leaves these gaps for ourselves to examine. Søren Kierkegaard himself was, like most of the people living in the 19th century, religious. Furthermore, he was a theologian, and his theological work focused on Christian ethics and the institution of the church. But his theological work was also characterized by his existentialist thinking, because he was extremely critical of the practice of Christianity as a state religion, primarily that of the Church of Denmark. Kierkegaard also stressed that individuals must choose their own way without the aid of universal, objective standards. This laid the groundwork for Kierkegaard's skeptic perspective on organized religion. Friedrich Nietzsche further contended that the individual must decide which situations are to count as moral situations. Thus, most existentialists believe that personal experience and acting on one's own convictions are essential in arriving at the truth, and that the understanding of a situation by someone involved in that situation is superior to that of a detached, objective observer, or, one could argue, God. This sheds light to Nietzsche's concept that God is dead. Sartre is perhaps the most well-known as well as one of the few to have actually accepted being called an existentialist. Sartre's primary idea was that people as humans are condemned to be free, as mentioned in the beginning of this video. This theory relies upon his position that there is no creator, and he illustrates this by using the example of the paper cutter. Sartre says that if one considered a paper cutter, one would assume that the creator would have had a plan for it, an essence. Sartre said that human beings have no essence before their existence because there is no creator. Thus, existence precedes essence. Another term commonly used in existentialism is authenticity, which is the degree to which a person's actions are consistent with his or her beliefs and desires, despite external pressures to conformity. Said in other words, to which degree social influence results in change in belief or behavior in order to fit in with a group. The conscious self comes to terms with the condition of having been thrown into an absurd world without any values or meaning, thereby encountering external forces and influences different from and other than the self. This means that regardless of who we are, we will throughout our lifetime be exposed to other individuals who will have an impact on what values we carry and who will, to some degree, shape our personality and the choices we make. Sartre maintained that the concept of authenticity and individuality have to be earned but not learned. Death draws the final point when we as beings cease to live for ourselves and permanently become objects that exist only for the outside world. In this way, death emphasizes the burden of our free individual existence. Expressed differently, when we die, we will only remain in the memory of others, and our remains will become yet another object for the outside world. On this happy note, we shall end this video by once again look at the picture painted by Franz Stuck. The picture with the man who is faced with a black hole of nothingness as he assumably struggles with finding the meaning of existence. Well, even though there might not be a predetermined meaning of this life, and this therefore would represent a black hole of nothingness, then ask yourself, do you need a predetermined meaning of this life, your life? Or are you happy with finding meaning and life-affirming wonder for yourself? And even though that might not be as easy as it sounds, you can at least appreciate the privilege of being owner of your own brief spark of consciousness. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it and you would like to watch more, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to The Wonderful Truth.